Hello, every pony. My name is Dreamscript, and I think you can tell what I'm planning on doing here. I'm here to... What is the word I want here? Not analyzing. Commentary? No. Fuck it. I'm here to talk about the Crystal Empire Season 3 opening. Why? Well, two reasons. One, there's so many analyzing pony channels. I mean, seriously, how many are there? Go away! Yes, so many of these channels and all of the really big names of the pony analyzing community, and they have maybe a hookful of this episode. The headcanon videos and world-building theories are a completely different story, but I'll be talking about why I think that is later. 2. This is the episode I really want to pick apart for reasons I shall be listing later, many of them being my personal headcanons and the desire to see if anybody shares them or finds them at all valid/interesting. My hopes are not high in the latter regard. Well, now that that's out of the way, let's get to the necessary part of these videos. Quickly recapping the episodes. This will be very quick, trust me. Okay, get all that? Good. Now let's move on to the more interesting part of this video, analyzing and discussion! Yay! Now where to begin in this is rather tricky because there's so much to discuss here. Thankfully, I have a simple plan to keep things semi-organized, as I have 3 fields of discussion I want to cover. First, I want to talk about what this episode tells us about Equestria, the Crystal Empire, and the introduced characters by the clear facts. Second, the fan reaction. Thirdly, and I suspect this is going to be the bulk of this video, I'm going to be talking about my headcanons and theories and how they clash or align with other popular theories about this episode. This part will be broken into 2 groups. What the Empire means to Equestria, and King Sombra. Oh, shut up and wait until I'm there. So then, the clear facts presented in the Crystal Empire. Now, what we know about the Empire from Celestia's explanation in Twilight's history book is that it is a powerful landmark that has basically been forgotten since its disappearance. Though, given that it's been 1,000+ years, not all that surprising. We also know that the Empire had existed for possibly hundreds of years before King Sombra's takeover. How can I say this, you ask? Well, by this line, of course.
According to this book, it was established by their first queen and became their most important tradition.
Its first queen. Let me repeat that. Its first queen. This line states that there were many other queens of the Empire and that the Crystal Fair has been going on for a long time. Of course, we don't know how long the Empire has been around for, but judging from its size, its history of multiple rulers who may or may not have been alicorns, not to mention the size of its library, I would guess that the Empire is around 1,000 years old easy. Now, hold on. I can hear you now. But what about magic? That would have sped up the building of the Empire. Yes, it would have. If we had seen crystal unicorns and pegasi. As far as we knew at the time, all the Crystal Empires were Earth Pony type. We were only introduced to a single Crystal Pegasus in the Season 4 Three's a Crowd, and that was for all of what, 10 seconds? However, I also say that the Empire is as old as it is because it has its own sense of nationality. It's considered to be separate from the ruling law of the rest of Equestria, seeing as it has its own royalty. And 1,000 years ago, or at least the time when the Empire had disappeared, the rest of Equestria probably would have still been recovering from its time of chaotic rule. Thanks, Discord.
Oh, this is so much fun.
Now, the Crystal Ponies themselves, we don't know all that much about them. Their coats seem to reflect their moods, but Pinky's does the same thing, so that might just be a general pony trait. I do wonder how their coats were animated, though. It seems like it had to be a heck of a job. one thing that does stand out is how heavily they seem to rely on the Crystal Heart for protection. When the ponies felt Sombra's influence beginning to invade, their first instinct was to rush to the heart. While the Crystal Heart is clearly a powerful object on par with the elements of harmony, if not more powerful, this scene suggests that the Crystal Ponies are generally a very submissive collection of ponies. Any pony see a single royal guard for the Empire in that episode? No? For a place that sees jousting as a form of entertainment, you'd think there would be some form of army to be called upon in times of trouble and danger. Of course, I think the real purpose of this episode was to add some world building and give us a cool new area to explore and travel to, and in absolute honesty, to help promote the new release of toys for Hasbro. But every other analyzer has talked that to death, and I'm just focusing on the episode itself. Seriously though, toy promotion or not, who doesn't want to go to the Crystal Empire? It's just so shiny!
There are no words!
I mean, it's a very picturesque location. Anyway, where was I? Oh, right. I was talking about the facts. Okay, let's see. We've talked about the Empire, the Crystal Ponies. What am I forgetting?
Find Princess Cadence in shining armor.
Oh, right. Them. Shining armor and Princess Cadence. For sun's sake, what hasn't been said about them before? Characters that appeared out of the blue from the previous season finale and who ping-ponged between being overpowered and completely useless. Not that I would call either of them actively useless, seeing as how they do have their roles here. After all, it is Cadence's shield of love and light that's keeping the Empire from falling into Sombra's clutches much, much sooner. And to his credit, Shining Armor does try to fight against Sombra before having his horn candy-coated. I mean, yeah, he failed miserably, but at least he tried. A for effort and everything, after all. And as far as Cadence goes, I don't really have much to say about her. Well, except for this.
Behold, the Crystal Princess!
Crystal Princess. Well, she does have the Crystal Heart for her cutie mark, but as far as we knew, Cadence has grown up in Canterlot. She knows nothing about the Empire herself, and while her powers of love do lend themselves well to being a ruler of the Empire, it's been stated that Cadence just started off as a normal Pegasus. I'm sorry to say this, but this line just baffles me a little. The only explanation that makes any sense is headcanon territory, and we'll be covering that later. So as far as the royal couple goes, I respect their potential, but I find them a little on the dull side. Now that we've covered the facts, what's next? Oh. Yay. Well, let's get this over with. Now, before I actually say anything on the already existing fans of the show, I want to take the opportunity to explain some personal history I have with the show. When the show first started, I had absolutely no interest in it. I remember the show from my childhood, and thinking of a reboot just made me shake my head. Frankly, I was more interested in watching giant alien robots beat the cogs out of each other, or serial killers putting sex-driven morons on the chopping block. So at first I didn't care. Then the first season started catching fire around the internet. I started seeing fan art popping up around my favorite art site. Some of the art was cute, but I wasn't too interested. Then season 2 started, and sweet Celestia, pony art exploded all over the net. Discord, the main 6 background ponies were suddenly everywhere, even from some of my close online friends. But I still didn't take a look at the series. Call it stubborn pride, I guess. It was about this time that the hype for the Canterlot wedding started bleeding into mainstream media, and I was even seeing ads for it in my local stores. It was maddening. I was almost glad when the season ended and the studio took a break between seasons. Then something finally got under my skin. In my attempt to avoid MLP, I ran toward British sci-fi. Ponies couldn't possibly invade such different genre, right? Yeah, I know, what was I thinking? But, yeah, I started looking at Doctor Who, and that led me, like, right under the actual show on a Google search. Something called Doctor Who's. At this point, I reasoned, this can't possibly be real. Gotta be a joke. Gotta be a joke. And so I clicked on it. 3 full-length fan-made episodes later, and I was embarrassingly hooked. That group led me to another, and another, and another. And in the end, I finally threw up my hands and said, "Fine, I'll watch an episode." I devoured the 2 seasons on Netflix in a weekend. All of a sudden, all the fan art I was seeing made perfect sense, and I was arguing with my sister over who was best pony. Ugh, it hurts just thinking how quickly I became invested in the show. And then season 3 aired, and the final nail in the coffin was hammered home. I was a bucking brony, and there was no going back. Personally, I blame this smug bastard. Damn it, Sombra, why did you have to be my type of villain? Why? I hate how much I love you, you obviously sinister tyrant. But now that I've explained myself, back to the actual review. Fan reactions. Just like many episodes the show has put out, this episode had very mixed results, as it was the beginning of the 2-parter formula trend. Loudest voices that I heard after this were ones of complaint. Complaints that the villain was underdeveloped, the new artifact was just another cop-out, the newly introduced characters were still useless, as I've mentioned. Granted, some of these statements were sadly well-founded, but I don't see how that ruined the episode. Didn't help it, just didn't hurt it that much. Maybe it's just a different viewpoint of mine. The positive stuff that I heard about this episode was mostly on Twilight's development, a little history of the Empire that was discussed, and some of the music. Frankly, I think some of the reason behind this polarized opinion was due to the massive hype fest Hasbro shoved down the fans' throat. They were calling this the best season opening yet, and for some people it was, but seriously, there's just no pleasing some people, especially the ones looking for something to complain about. And every fandom has haters. There's no way to make everybody happy. Hyping it just makes it worse, and ponies will say that it was all talk and no payoff. Really? Letting the show speak for itself and letting the fans get themselves excited is the best way to advertise. Sneak previews and promo clips help, but just saying that the show's going to be awesome because of what the series is like looking down the barrel of a gun thinking it won't go off just because you've got hold of it. Okay, I think that's enough there. Now to the best part of this video. My headcanons! Well, don't get all revved up at once. Jeez. Okay, so start with the Crystal Empire and what it means to Equestria. Well, meant to Equestria. To figure this out, a great deal of guesswork is demanded, but I love making up stories, so here goes. Settle down, grab some crystal corn, and enjoy my story.